How much do we truly know about our beloved Crested Butte? Its steep slopes bring skiers and boarders from around the world. Its economy is built from the tourism, but before that, Crested Butte was a mining town. Crested Butte is rich with coal and silver, which brought in immigrants looking to make a new life in America. Some of the miners met an unfortunate event, which turned the small town into one of the most haunted towns in Colorado.
Crested Butte initially was known as the gateway to the Elk Mountains, and everybody thought it was going to be a great silver and gold area with Irwin and Tin Cup and Gothic and White Pine and so on all around it. The initial people that came to Crested Butte in the 1860s were placer miners, and they came up to Washington Gulch and the Crystal River along the banks of Coal Creek, and that lasted for about a decade, and they were gold panning. And then that mining rush came in the late 1870s, and the spillover came in from Lake City. In Colorado, we got a Colorado mineral belt that goes 250 miles south and west from Caribou up around Boulder all the way down to about Durango in the southwest. So when miners came to Leadville and they came into the San Juan, and Gunnison was kind of in the middle, they knew that there had to be gold and silver somewhere in the middle along that mountain range. But it became obvious very early that we did not have the high-grade ore that a lot of these other areas had. So Crested Butte turned to what it had oodles of, and that was coal. There were 9 mines around Crested Butte that were coal mines. The Jokerville, which blew up in 1884, was just a little to the west of that along Coal Creek. And it was so dangerous that the mine inspector refused to go into it for 6 months before it exploded. And it exploded because of seeping methane gas. And methane gas is gas you can't smell. And nobody knows what happened, but a spark obviously set off the explosion. 60 miners were killed. A lot of them got to about 200 feet of the fan, which supplied air inside the mine, but the fan was smashed by the explosion, wasn't working, and these guys who weren't hurt by the initial blast just died of lack of air 200 feet from safety.
There is a memorial dedicated to the victims of the Jokerville mine. Many of the miners that died in the explosion are buried in a mass grave below the memorial in the Crested Butte Cemetery. Stories have been told of some of the restless souls of the miners haunting the residents of Crested Butte late in the night.
Crested Butte has a real history of being haunted. And like I said, like Elk Avenue, we had heard that just about every building on the street was haunted.
The victims of the Jokerville explosion are not the only paranormal spirits that lurk in Crested Butte. On Elk Avenue lies the Forest Queen Hotel.
What we really liked about the Forest Queen is it had a long history. You know, the downstairs was originally a saloon, the upstairs was a brothel. And it still looks just exactly the same, pretty much the same architecture, same floor plan. And a number of people had told us that it had a reputation for it, and so it had the look.
Locals and tourists alike have reported paranormal activity coming from the second floor of the Forest Queen Hotel. The trapped spirit, who is known as Elizabeth, torments the guests throughout the night.
She was an 1880s prostitute. That's the way the legend goes, and she was in what's presently current day room 4.
Elizabeth was a middle-aged prostitute that worked and lived at the Forest Queen Hotel. When she fell in love with a transient gambler, he conned her into giving him all of her savings, which the gambler then doubled and quickly escaped into the night with. Elizabeth, broke and emotionally distraught by his betrayal, hurled herself into the Coal Creek below, killing her instantly. Some of the Forest Queen Hotel guests have reported hearing Elizabeth's spirit angrily slamming doors and banging pots together.
We had heard that rooms 4, which was Elizabeth, the prostitute suicide, and room 6 had a lot of activity. We walked in and it just felt really creepy. We felt like both of us separately, the hair raised on our necks. And we thought, okay, this is going to be interesting. While we were in there, we heard somebody walking in the hallway and looked out. There was nobody there. We heard a door slam, and we had opened all the doors and looked out, and all the doors were open. My wife, Kim, she started feeling something pinch her lower leg, And she didn't mention it to me at the time. She thought, I bet I've got my boot must be, my sock must be pinching there. And when she would walk, it felt like she was wearing shackles. Like when she would walk with one leg, her left leg would pinch, and it felt like it was attached to the other leg. And that went on all during the investigation, and as soon as we walked out the door into the sidewalk, it wasn't there.
This small Colorado ski town is known for its treacherous, steep slopes. But the darker side of the town lays waiting in the shadows. As one of the most haunted ski towns in America, we share the mountain with the restless spirits that haven't traveled into the afterlife just quite yet.